This is a document, a paper, and it's titled, "The Earth Isn't Flat, but Much Bigger Than What We Were Told." So this theory, in which, by the way, Germany the Nazis were very much focused in on this. As we can see, Hitler, this is a map that actually shows that everything that we think is the Earth, everything that we think is space, is really just limited to, regulated to just a very small hole, a crater. And evidence of this is, of course, the symbols, NASA. I want to read some of this. The Earth is part of something much bigger, therefore it seems flat. Well, but that's because of the scale. There are many continents, and 33 of them were camouflaged through our classic Earth model. Many people discuss, how did the ice get on Antarctica? How do we have these miles thick ice when everything else pointing that wasn't always there? Coal has been found by the pyramids on Antarctica. You don't have coal in what would be considered a frozen continent. Many people believe that the ice is artificial in nature, put it that way. Anyway, by bending them inwards through Antarctica. Now follow along with this. This is interesting. This is where the term hollow earth comes from. Therefore, Antarctica also has the form of a human brain. This may be coincidence or for cynical reasons. And you can see it right here, folks. Let me just get this a little larger for those of you who are actually watching. Pull it up for, there it is. So you can see how it does resemble the human brain. Weird. Okay, let's continue. There is still much land beyond Antarctica, the wall. This is strange. And look at the drawings here. This is what they're talking about. What we think is our reality is nothing more than the petri dish. Besides, the mean radius of Earth is 3.959 miles, or 6.371 kilometers. The planet, or kilometers, excuse me. The planet's rotation causes it to bulge at the equator. The equatorial diameter is 7.92.6 miles, or 12.57 kilometers. But from pole to pole, the diameter is 7.898 miles, a difference of only 28 miles or 42 kilometers. The circumference of the Earth at the equator is about 24,874 miles, or 40,030 kilometers. But from pole to pole, the meridian circumference, the Earth is only 24,860 miles. This shape, caused by the flattening at the poles, is called an obulated spheroid. The elite of the world have been aware of this, but they've kept it a secret for centuries simply by manipulating the world map. Go and try to find a satellite image directly of the North Pole. And tell me what satellite took the picture. I'd like to see the picture of our geographical North Pole. And let me tell you, the group of scientists, it's a who's who. Newton. I mean, the first continent beyond the Arctic border is Agartha, Nieuw-Nederland. This explains why the Nazis were that active during the Second World War in this area. I mean, the Nazis found out something. It's been speculated, Admiral Byrd's story, but the Nazis they had a base, two of them in Antarctica. The battle that Admiral Byrd and his fleet encountered, the saucers with a swastika on it, that's a little weird. So this is also the reason why the Nazis went to settle in Argentina after World War II, because they could make the transition very quickly. And this is a document. I don't read German, but as you can see, it was of the Nazi Party. They had detailed maps. So either we're missing something or they were in a different reality. I don't know. This is strange stuff, folks. So these are pictures of the Nazis on Antarctica. Now remember, they're down there with no competition. I mean, the Allied forces are busy fighting this war primarily in the Northern Hemisphere. And then along came the spider, and they found out something. Many people contribute this to the advanced knowledge Germany had on the occult. Many say that the reason why Churchill backed Crowley was that because Crowley was the only individual, and even at times, that could come up against whatever it was the Nazis had. Anyway, it says the distance between South Argentina and Nieuw-Nederland is the shortcut. And you can see here, it's at the tip of South Africa, and just jump right over. This explains, again, why the elite gave its name to some land parts in Antarctica. Queen Elizabeth Base, Rockefeller Plateau. This is weird, isn't it? It's like, Rockefeller Plateau? Why would that be the case? The pyramids, older than the ones in Giza. The elite doesn't care if the world as we know it today will soon be destroyed. What? Because they are aware that there is still enough untouched land. You and I can't go down there. As a private citizen, no. Get your ass shot off. That's why Admiral Byrd admitted during his interview, almost all missiles, NASA, bend in flight and fly towards this continent with elaborates and high-ranked celebrities and high-ranked individuals on board. It's really interesting when I followed the ISS when they used to have all the cameras turned on. Every time they got over Antarctica, the cameras cut off. Same thing would happen when they got over the North Pole. Cameras would turn off. Now, you can say what it is. They say that the crop circles, remember the phenomenon that happened at the beginning of the last decade? I mean, there were some really good channels because the crop circles were coming up every other day, and they were spectacular. I mean, you know, you can say that these are human made. I don't know. If they are, they're really good. But they say that this is signs all leading to this hollow earth. It says that we are the living embodiment of the Truman Show. Truth is in plain sight. And if you look at some of these elaborate crop circles, we don't have them anymore today, at least not into where it was. Flat earthers are on to something, but they fall short of the biblical stuff they throw into play and don't grasp the bigger picture. The movement as a whole is meant to be a second thought farm and push you away from the bigger picture. Wow. This explains why the horizon is far outstretched. They give you showing the plane of sight from an airplane, and why there are two suns at times visible. The Nibiru folks just go crazy over this stuff. If the circumference of the Earth is 40,000 kilometers, the diameter is only 8,000 kilometers with a crust of 3 kilometers thick. Lots of space would not survive. I remember this picture, both of these, when they came out. There was this period in 2000, I don't know, 2012, it started to get really interesting and really peaked out in about 2015, 2016. We were in some strange things. I mean, it's as I look back now and I start reviewing what I was capturing, yeah. He says it's not strange that Rockefeller and Brzezinski die soon after. They are not dead, but have just flown to a safe location like many others already before them. I think they're on the nose with us being under a dome, but I don't think the Earth is flat. I think we live in a controlled habitat. I think we are the 33rd habitat on planet that is much larger than we think. 33 continents. Then you look at the UN and their symbol, flag, is that they have 33 lines, 33 degrees. And of course, we know about the Freemasons and the use of the 33rd degree. The flat Earth map is on point, and there are other domed habitats on the planet we live in. We are number 33. Interesting. The Rothschilds and ruling families own this quadrant. What? A lot of evidence supporting that one. This is why they can deal with impunity in every country's affair. They own everything under this dome. Perhaps these owners can leave this habitat and visit other habitats. Maybe they are stuck here like us. And this gets into the whole thing about launching satellites and yeah. Life may have evolved differently under other domes. Hell, we could be a mix of species from other habitats thrown into the one we live in. Now, that would correlate into the prison planet. that whole theory, whole line of thought, and into the different religions, it is said that if you study the book of Genesis correctly, that the firmament is talking about a dome. Now, we have the perception that a dome is finite, but we fail to perceive that if, for instance, if you track the sun on a time-exposed camera, even a telescope, and you follow the sun as it traverses its course across the sky, you will see that the sun goes from being very large on the horizon, but when it reaches apogee, at the top of the apogee, excuse me, at the top, it's very small. Some weird things. I mean, I've got the pictures, and how do you explain that? Well, they explained that it's dealing with the concave of the atmosphere, and how the atmosphere is thicker on the horizon, but much thinner at the top. But then you got to go, well, now wait a minute. What I see as maybe as the noonday sun is for someone else is seen as their sunrise, or someone else is seeing it as their sunset. So if we're seeing it all at the same time, and if you're trying to tell me that at my point of view is where it's least amplified, well, how can that be when, again, someone who's seeing it as their sunset, yeah, told you this is interesting. The last control mechanism that was put into place was the Bible. It's not working out too well these days. They explain the dome in the Bible. They actually do. I said, if I remember being in, Bible school, I mean, we discussed this in depth, and it's really is this firmament. We have that one picture from, I think it's the 1600s, where the guy is picking up the firmament and he sticks his head out and he suddenly sees it ain't what they told us. Yeah. Could be as well as that this are different habitats, that when a person dies in the body of this, that is why the transition of the spirit is immediate. It gets into a different habitat. Goes on to say, since humans were determined to reach the stars and question the Bible's authenticity, they needed to create NASA and other space agencies to deceive the people being ruled. Did we really go to the moon? Do we really have crafts on Mars? Have we really sent human-made crafts to Venus, etc.? See, they have a monopoly on space because nobody can know that it's not accessible. It would destroy the illusion that we are free. This is why they elaborated the hoax of spaceflight. The UN map is divided into 33 quadrants. The owners of this habitat are the owners of Habitat 33. There could be 32 other habitats outside what we call Earth. There could be hundreds, thousands more. The truth is in plain sight. There are hundreds of references in movies, music, TV shows, and company logos flaunting the habitat they own, with nobody being the wiser. The truth is, Flat Earth is a disinformation campaign that is hiding the bigger picture and even incorporating another control mechanism, also known as the Bible. We live in an enclosed habitat, and land exists outside the confines of our biodome. And it's really interesting because there are books like the Colburn Bible, the bronze books, talk about this as well. And many of the stories of the origins and the beginnings of mankind, Homo sapiens, you would say, that it's more representative of a dome than it is of a planet sky. And as you can see, even here, some of the relics here that they have this as well. It says, this theory can be tested by an independent expedition to Antarctica, but this will never be done. The world is a stage, and everything is predetermined. The Bible laid out our end 2,000 years ago, but it wasn't God's word. It was the word of the deciphers and the rulers of this quadrant. I think that's deciders. I also have a theory that our quadrant is used as a blood factory. Whenever a false flag occurs and they request blood, they can replenish the supply. See the pulse shooting and the blood drives associated. But that's a whole different story. The question is, are the rulers of this quadrant even human? In order to build an enclosure this massive, I wouldn't think so. But who knows how far technology has progressed in billions of years. Now, that's some food for thought. Not saying that this is at all what it appears. We're just reading. These are smart people who are writing this. All of this is from academia. And I love the fact that you got people within academia that press the boundaries beyond the limit of most people's tactile ability to comprehend. All right, I got another one here. This one is, the world is a globe theater. You're going to love this one. And again, this is David Van der Peer. I love this guy's works. I tell you, I've got all of his works that he's doing. In fact, he just posted a new paper. So he goes on to explain something that's really interesting. The 16th century. Been talking about this all week and will to the end of the week. The empire expands. The 16th century is regarded by historians as the century in which the rise of the West occurred. During the 16th century, Spain and Portugal explored the world seas and opened worldwide oceanic trade routes. Now, let me just tell you, this is again something that I am trying to get David to come on, is that how do we account then for the Phoenicians? But I think maybe from, if you look at strictly from a commerce in what we would call the Renaissance period, then yeah. Anyway, large parts of the New World became Spanish and Portuguese colonies. And while the Portuguese became the masters of Asia and the African Indian Ocean trade, the Spanish opened trade across the Pacific Ocean, linking the Americas with Asia. This era of colonization established mercantilism as the leading school of economic thought, where the economic system was viewed as a zero-sum game in which any gain by one party required a loss by another. The mercantilist doctrine encouraged the many intra-European wars of the period and arguably fueled European expansion and imperialism throughout the world until the 19th century or early 20th century. In Europe, the Protestant Reformation gave a major blow to the authority of the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church. European politics became dominated by religious conflicts, with the groundwork for the apocryphal 30-year war being laid towards the end of the century. In Italy, Luca, I think that's Pergoli, published the first work ever on accounting, and Galileo made the first thermometer. In England, the Italian Albrecht Gentile wrote the first book on public international law and divided secularism from canon law and Roman Catholic theology. So what we were talking about yesterday, and even with Trina and I, is that there was something that took place here, and this is part of all of this, what was taking place. In the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire, these are the Muslims, continued to expand, with the Sultan taking the title of Caliphate, while dealing with the resurgence of Persia. Iran and Iraq were caught by major popularity of the Shiite sects of Islam under the rule of the Safavid dynasty of warrior mystics, providing grounds for a Persia independent of the majority of the Sunni Muslim world. But you didn't know that, huh? I didn't know that either, huh? The dynasty of warriors and mystics. Wow. Copernicus proposed the heliocentric universe, which was met with strong resistance. And Tycho refuted the theory of celestial spheres through observational measurement of the 1572 appearance of the Milky Way supernova. I don't know what the heck was on my neck. Felt like it anyway. This is interesting. These events directly challenged the long-held notion of an immutable universe supported by Ptolemy Aristotle, and led to major revolutions in astronomy and science. The 16th century was one that changed the world and began shaping it to what we know today. Queen Elizabeth and the Golden Age. Queen Elizabeth was in fact a man, farm boy, named Neville. This explains the whole Virgin Queen thing. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The 16th century is regarded as the century of change, as the word itself mentions, reforming both religion and worldview. It is also known as the Golden Age or the New World. Amazing, huh? First transvestite. The globe, the Virgin Queen. The pictures of her, if you see, you don't know what's beyond that. That's all I'm saying. He goes on to say that Elizabeth was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. As Henry was wont to do, he beheaded Anne. Hey, that's a risky marriage right there going into that. You know, yeah, you want me to sign the prenup? No problem. At the young age of 3, the future queen was left with her paranoid father, the man who loved a good execution, and older half-sister, who would come to be known as Bloody Mary. So it was pretty much your average happy childhood. Everything begins right about the time England was hit with the bubonic plague. I will not go into the details of the symptoms. Just know that this is not a disease you want. In an effort to dodge the plague, 10-year-old Elizabeth was sent with her governess, Lady Cat Ashley, and guardian Thomas Parry to the small farming town of Bisley. In a way, it worked. Elizabeth did not get the plague, though she avoided succumbing to the Black Death. So she, oh, excuse me. Though she avoided succumbing to the Black Death, so she did die of unknown causes. While Henry VIII said, I am on my way to visit my beloved daughter, Lady Cat and T. Perry went into a nervous tizzy. They hatched a plan that would change England forever. Oh, this is good. This is salacious, isn't it? Cat and T-Par decided to save their heads by finding a look-alike in Beasley to impersonate Elizabeth. Unfortunately, since Beasley was such a small town, there were no girls around the age of 10. But that was not going to stop their genius. They noticed that Elizabeth's good friend Neville had the same coloring and was the same size as Elizabeth. They dressed Neville up like his dead friend and made him lie in the most feared man in England. Oh, made him lie. Not a great deal for the young Neville. There was no way that this was going to work. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is interesting. It worked so well, in fact, the ruse continued. Eventually, Henry VIII and Bloody Mary died, and Neville took the throne as queen, a reign that continued for 44 years. During his or her reign, no one was allowed to see the Queen Elizabeth Neville without the wigs and heavy makeup she always donned. Her Highness dresses were known to be lavishly large and have high necklines. She only allowed a select few physicians to examine her and would wait a few weeks at a time rather than let the physician in closer physical proximity to give her a checkup. Perhaps most famously, however, she was known as the Virgin Queen, refusing to marry. Right before she died, she was very adamant that no one give her an autopsy. She also undid almost all of the terrible laws Bloody Mary put into place, restored goodwill between France and England, and fought tooth and nail to ascribe legitimacy to the arts. So, century later, you can thank Bram Stoker, the Dracula author. It all started when Bram visited Beasley and saw a parade that featured a young boy dressed as a queen. Bram naturally had a couple of questions and was fascinated by the answers. He heard tales of Neville and a mysterious coffin that was found outside Beasley, containing the body of a child dressed as a royal Tudor in royal Tudor clothing. Wow. This is very interesting. Big names from the period. It's Luther, Nostradamus, Mary I of England, Mary Queen of Scots, Sir Francis Drake, Leonardo da Vinci. Okay. Elizabeth, I realized she had to undertake something to gain her power. She decided to restrict the knowledge of the population. Only by doing so, she could keep her position. The Virgin Queen paid a fortune to some confidence to work out this plan. Gerardus Mercator received 2,000 sovereigns to design a smaller version of reality. So he figured out a globe model as representation of the real reality that people live in. A sovereign is a gold coin worth £1, but try to think of it as 20 shillings. I have no idea what that means. I mean, what is a pound? Is to a dollar is what, 1.5, I think, $1.50. Anyway, so this is where John Dee comes in. It said that John Dee was paid 4,900 sovereigns for being the architect of the Globe Theater. Besides that, he was the direct trust informant of Her Majesty. He became the first spy, the first true 007. William Shakespeare received an unknown amount, but he was instructed to spread this model as soon as possible to the population via the theater plays. One of his works was entitled Arthur, of course, referring to King Arthur. But in this piece, the entire history of King Arthur was written off as legend, fantasy. With this, a large part of history was deleted from the collective memory. But with that too, the great awareness of human life, the first form of brainwashing was discovered. So again, as with the trees, we're still on this topic. I mean, this is so interesting because if you look at the influence of what England did, particularly in the 16th century, you don't hear that much coming from the papacy. If you do deep study, you could find out more about what the Ottoman Empire was all about. And they had some remarkable discoveries that they didn't let out. It seems that this was more common knowledge than what may have been thought. Seems Neville, or if you want to go ahead and just call her Queen Elizabeth, was also intelligent. And if you look at the influence in everything, society, culture, science, religions, the arts, yeah. And you start getting into the math of this, and then you begin to look at these different pictures, and you can see what the astronaut is really seeing here. And actually, this is a view of the whole concept that we're just habitat 33. So here's the fool's cap. The fool's cap is the map of the world. It is thought to be the Flemish in origin, possibly from Antwerp, dated about 1590. Here we go again. The official description is a fool or jester with a world map in place of his face. World map on the coteiform projection within the visor of a fool's cap. Coteiform apparently means heart-shaped. It makes me wonder why fool's cap paper is so called. The answer, according to Wikipedia, which is not the Britannica Encyclopedia, is that fool's cap was named after the fool's cap and Bell's watermark commonly used from the 15th century onward on paper of these dimensions. So it's interesting, you know, if you study the artwork of M.C. Usher, we're going to get into that and want to hold one show on that. M.C. Usher was another one. So here we go. All talking about this globe, this spheroid, to be correct. And then you start getting into the Masonic aspect of this, and this really does get weird. So here we are. Here is what reality is. We certainly aren't in Kansas anymore, are we? So here we go with the Masons, 33 continents. In Freemasonry, the letter G stands for God or the Grand Architect, but also geometry. Okay. So Queen Elizabeth. how would anyone know if this was a dude or not? I mean, I'm looking at some of these paintings and I'm going, all right. So John Dee gets into this thing, and John Dee is someone that if you're into a cult, you know who John Dee is. David Barry and I had, discussion. John Dee was really one of these cats that he knew stuff. He knew a lot of stuff. Um, It says a detailed study of John Dee's late 16th century claim that King Arthur conquered the far northern world or North America. Although sometimes treated as Dee's own invention, the concept of Arthur as a conqueror of the Arctic and even parts of North America clearly antedates Dee. One witness to it is I guess it's Grostrati theory, which was seen and summarized by Jacob Conran, who probably wrote in the 14th century. This medieval document apparently describes Arthur's attempt to conquer the far north, including an expedition launched against the North Pole itself. Another witness is the largest algorithm, Londus, I think that's Caleste, which dates from the start of the 13th century and provides a list of Arthur's northern conquest, including Greenland, Vinland, and the North Pole. On the basis of these and other documents, it would appear that the concept of Arthur as an Arctic conqueror can be traced to at least the late 12th century, if not before. Now, I got a little bit of time here. And if you want this document, I know I have a lot of requests. I will get them filled out by Saturday. Trust me. It goes on to how it becomes that with this knowledge that we live in a dome, what John Dee did was that he went out and began to find out who else knew about this. And he found out that a lot of people do. Now, there is one document here that I want to get to. Let's see.